Part 1. Why does my apartment feel so alien? I wondered aloud as dawn light streamed through the blinds, dust motes dancing in the air. Just yesterday, on a rain-slicked Wednesday evening, I'd received a text from my girlfriend, now undeniably my ex, Zoe, 28. I need space, Miles. Don't contact me for a bit. I'll ping you when I'm ready. We'd shared nearly 2 years together, the last 12 months side by side in my one-bedroom loft overlooking the river. Lately, her smiles had been shorter, our conversations clipped. But I chalked it up to work stress at her marketing job, never imagined it was the opening salvo of our breakup. That text landed as I was sautéing peppers for pasta. I felt the air rush from my chest, as if the apartment itself exhaled. Space. A polite word for walk away. I tapped out a reply, understood. Take all the time you need. And then tiptoed around the routines we'd built. Coffee mugs on the counter, towels on the rack, fairy lights above the bed. Her radio silence began. For 2 days, I oscillated between hope and dread. I distracted myself with freelance design work, rearranged my record collection, and rewatched old sitcom episodes. On the second Friday, I cracked open my phone to mindless Instagram scrolling and froze. There she was, Zoe, her laugh gleaming in the sunlight, palm pressing playfully on the shoulder of Cole, 29, her ex-boyfriend, the one she'd assured me was history. They were standing thigh-deep in turquoise water, cocktails in hand, captioned something like "Sun and Smooch's water wave clinking glasses #back together." My pulse slammed against my ribs. The word space dissolved into a sting. She wasn't pausing to reflect, she was reconnecting, reuniting with Cole, while I sat silently obeying her command. An iceberg of realization sank. She didn't just want space from me. She wanted me out of her immediate world. Saturday morning, I felt a quiet resolve harden inside me. First order of business, my front door. I called Titan Locksmiths, explained life's messy details over the phone, and by mid-morning a burly technician swapped both the deadbolt and knob. $260 later, Zoe's key was flattened paperweight. The echo of those new locks clicking shut sounded like closure. Next came her car. 6 months earlier, her age Corolla had finally wheezed its last breath. She needed reliable wheels for early morning client meetings in her social media role, but her credit history read like a cautionary tale. Trusting her, I'd scouted and bought a pristine 2017 Mazda CX-5 for $18,000 in cash. I'd drawn up the loan so title, insurance, and monthly payments were all under my name. She paid me back faithfully, almost, decorating the interior with fuzzy dice and a neon good vibes only sticker on the rear window. That spare key felt heavy in my palm. I slid behind the wheel, the leather warm beneath my fingers, and drove the CX-5 to Apex Auto Brokers, a dealership I'd vetted online. I stepped into their showroom, recited the script. I'm the registered owner, here to sell. Full inspection, title transfer, let's get it done. A sharply dressed appraiser ran through features, sniffed the leather, and quoted me $16,500 pending their inspection. I signed preliminary documents, left the car under their lot's bright floodlights, then grabbed an Uber home. Climbing the stairs to my loft, I noticed her reserved parking space, spot 42, gaping empty. The spare bedroom held 2 upright suitcases and a garment bag draped over a chair, her belongings frozen mid-packing. I left them untouched. It felt petty to toss her things. This was about pragmatism, not pettiness. I brewed a pot of dark roast and poured myself a coffee, steam curling in the morning light. As I sipped, I replayed every moment, her dimmed enthusiasm, the vanishing warmth in her eyes, that last text. The anger wasn't seismic. It was a low hum of betrayal, quickly overtaken by rational thought. She'd asked for no contact. She'd made her choice. I was merely honoring her request by stepping out of her path. On Monday, my bank alert pinged. Apex Auto confirmed the inspection was clear, title swapped, and the funds wired. I checked my balance, $16,500. Not a fortune, but enough to remind me I still had agency. I texted myself a note, lock the door, sell the car, reclaim space. It felt empowering. Standing by the window, I watched the city pulse, cars gliding along tree-lined streets, joggers looping the park below. The apartment no longer felt empty, it felt open. A quiet potential stretched before me. I could fill this space with anything. New routines, solo road trips, a gym membership, reconnections with friends I'd sidelined. I could be whole again without someone else's permission. I took another sip of coffee, the bitter warmth anchoring me to the present. Space, I realized, is a double-edged word. It can be a no-go zone, but it can also be a blank canvas. Zoe chose to wander hers with Cole. I chose to repaint mine. And in that choice lies the real freedom. Part 2. Why does the front hall feel so thick with tension? I muttered to myself as I heard the telltale scrape of a key against metal. It was last Tuesday evening, just after 9 p.m., and Miles, 31, was sprawled on my sofa, pretending that the tight knot in my stomach wasn't real. I'd spent the previous days quietly respecting Zoe's request for silence, changing the locks on my apartment door, selling her old SUV, and waiting for the space she demanded. According to her Instagram, her best life, island getaway with Cole, her ex, had another week to run. Now, the moment of truth was here. Would she really be locked out of my life? I sat up as the key scraping turned frantic, then a loud thud, knock, 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 shook the door. Miles, let me in. What the hell is going on here? Zoe's voice echoed in the narrow entryway, sharp but not yet frantic. I took a steadying breath, flicked the chain lock, and cracked the door just enough to see her. The overhead light cast her in sharp relief, sun-kissed skin, wind-tousled hair, suitcase at her side. Determination radiated off her like heat. My key isn't working, she said, her brows knitting in confusion. What did you do to the lock? Nothing too complicated, I replied softly, keeping my voice level. I changed them. Her eyes widened. You what? Why would you change the locks? You asked for space, I said. So I gave you permanent space. Permanent. Shock rippled through her tone. I just needed time to think. We agreed on that. I held firm. Seems you figured things out in Jamaica with Cole. According to your feed, that trip was more than just thinking. I raised an eyebrow. Friends don't take romantic vacations while they tell their partners to back off. Her jaw clenched, and she spun around, tapping her phone. That was harmless fun. You're being ridiculous. Let me in. My stuff is in there. Not tonight, I said, stepping back. You can text me a time tomorrow. I'll box up your things by the door. But you won't be coming into my home beyond the threshold. Her gaze flickered down to the empty parking spot beyond the window. Where's my car? I nodded toward the street. I sold it. Her voice cracked. You can't do that. I paid you for that car. I financed it, I said calmly. Title and loan are in my name. You made payments, but you never owned it. The sale process is complete. You'll get your share soon. She whipped out her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed. I didn't flinch. Go ahead, call the cops, I told her. Tell them your ex changed his own locks after you asked for no contact, then sold his car, titled in his name, while you were gone. Let me know how that goes. Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, rage and panic warred across her face. Then another voice drifted up the walkway, gentle, concerned, but laced with accusation. Miles, what's happening? Zoe's sister, Leah, 25, marched up, phone in hand. Why is Zoe locked out? Zoe's eyes filled with tears as she jabbed a finger at me. He changed the locks. Sold my car. He's throwing me out. Leah rounded on me, fury flaring. After everything she's done for you, you just kick her to the curb? That's cruel. I held out my hands in a placating gesture. Leah, I'm sorry you're caught in the middle. But this is my apartment, and the SUV was mine legally. Zoe asked loudly for space, then left with her ex. I'm just honoring her request. Lee's glare softened into disbelief. So you're punishing her for what? Cheating. I squared my shoulders. It wasn't exactly cheating, more like emotional reconnection. But she made her priorities clear. She wanted zero contact with me while she rekindled things with Cole. I'm not her backup plan. Zoe's voice broke as she pleaded. Miles, please, let me get my things. I'll explain. We can fix this. I folded my arms. You can explain it in text. Again, send me a time tomorrow. The boxes will be ready. Until then, I'm not letting you pass the doorway. A gust of sea breeze tousled Zoe's hair when her suitcase rattled as she spun to face Leah. See? He won't even talk to me. He sold my car. Lee's phone glowed in her hand as she stared at me, torn between loyalty to her sister and the facts before her. This is harsh. It's honest, I said. I spent weeks thinking I'd do anything to make us work. But actions speak louder than words. You asked for space, Zoe. I gave you space. My voice touched something softer, tinged with sadness. I just didn't think you'd be so eager to use it to erase me. Leah closed her eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. When she opened them, she glanced at Zoe, then back to me. Fine. I'll tell Zoe to text you tomorrow. But this, she gestured at the closed door, it's rough. I nodded and offered a half smile. I know. But sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones. Leah gave Zoe's arm a squeeze. Come on. Let's go. We'll sort this out without breaking down the door. Zoe took one last, pleading look through the peephole, then trudged down the steps behind Leah. I watched them go, the echo of their footsteps fading into the night. Inside, the apartment felt more peaceful than it had in weeks. I locked the chain back into place, muttered, "Space granted," and closed the door, literally and figuratively, on what had been. I walked to the couch, closed my eyes, and let the silence settle around me. It wasn't empty. It was mine again. Tomorrow, I'd box up Zoe's things and send her a time. But tonight, I'd savor the quiet. Part 3. Who set the rules? I did, I muttered as I clicked the deadbolt shut behind me. My hands trembled a bit, equal parts adrenaline, indignation, and a surprising wash of relief. Zoe had demanded no contact. This was the new arrangement. Text me a time for retrieval, I'd said. Goodbye. The door swung closed, leaving their voices, Zoe hollering, Leah trying to soothe her, in the hallway for another 5 minutes before fading into the distance. Late that night, my phone buzzed with a message that wasn't from Zoe but from Leah. Zoe needs her things tomorrow at 10 a.m. Be ready. No pleasantries, no please or thank you. Just a command. I tapped out okay and spent the next few hours methodically boxing Zoe's clothes, toiletries, books, and the little mementos she'd left behind, a faded concert wristband, a ceramic mug painted with her favorite mantra. Stacking the boxes by the door felt strangely cathartic, like finally clearing a table cluttered with crumbs of a ruined dinner. A few days later, Thursday, I think Apex Auto Brokers pinged me. The CX-5 inspection was complete, and their final offer stood at $16,350 after a small tire wear adjustment. I slipped down there Friday afternoon, signed the transfer documents, and pocketed the check. 5 minutes of paperwork sealed a chapter that had felt like months of emotional hemorrhage. Sunday night drifted by quietly. Monday morning, I laid in bed listening for the knock at exactly 10 a.m. Sure enough, 3 firm raps shook the door. I opened the chain and saw Leah standing there, arms folded, with Zoe's mom, Marina, 54, by her side. They flanked the doorway like a diplomatic delegation. Marina's eyes glistened as she strode forward, voice trembling with practiced concern. "Miles, this is cruel," she said, wiping what I suspected were crocodile tears. "Zoe's heart is broken. 2 years, you can't just lock her out and sell her car. She needs that for her job." I let her words hang for a beat, then gestured toward the entryway piles. "Here's her stuff," I said. "Take it all. Everything beyond these boxes is gone or donated. This apartment is under my roof again." Marina's lip quivered as she peered at the stacked cartons. "You don't understand. That vehicle wasn't yours to sell. Zoe paid toward it." I folded my arms. "Technically, it was. Title, loan, and insurance were all in my name. She made payments for usage, like rent, but I handled the risk. So I sold it. Actions have consequences. Hers was vacationing with her ex while demanding my silence." Leah shifted uncomfortably. "We need to check the closets and the bathroom," she said. "What if you missed something?" She sounded more like a lawyer than a sister. "Then it's unfortunate," I replied evenly. "What's here is hers. I packed it. There's nothing else. You can stand here and take the boxes." I motioned to the heap as if unveiling art. They exchanged glances, whispered under their breath, and then set to work. 3 loaded trips up the stairwell, each laden with cardboard and packing tape. All the while, Marina recited a litany of how heartless I was, how Zoe was traumatized, how I owed her compensation. Her voice rose and quavered, until it became a ragged mantra. I barely responded, just repeated, over and over, it was my car. Finally, after the 10th iteration, Marina's shoulders sagged, and she fell silent. Once they'd gone, I shut the door softly and leaned against it, exhaling a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My phone buzzed immediately, a string of messages, most from Zoe. Some were tearful apologies. "I miss you. I made a mistake. Please forgive me." Others were furious demands. "You owe me for the car. Give me my money back. I'll sue you." I ignored them all. Instead, I tapped out one final text. The CX-5 was legally mine. Title, loan, insurance, all under my name. Your payments were rent for usage. Consider everything settled. No further discussion. Then I blocked her number, blocked Lee's, and blocked Marina's. Silence, but not peace. By Tuesday, mutual friends started messaging me, eyes full of awkward questions. "Is everything okay?" I heard what happened. "Well, Some sent me gifs of supportive slogans. Others posted news articles about breakups or lockouts. I skimmed their messages but refused to engage. This was my boundary. The aftermath felt like the lull after a storm. My apartment, once humming with tension, now vibrated with quiet potential. I paced the living room, imagining the days ahead, scheduling a furniture delivery for the spare room, maybe a weekend hike to reset my brain, actual phone calls with friends instead of texts full of gossip. I could invite people over without bracing for confrontation. Late that night, I sank onto the couch, remote abandoned, and stared at the ceiling. The silence wasn't comfortable, it was new. But in that stillness, I sensed something important, a chance to rebuild on my own terms. Tomorrow, I'll wake up before the sun, brew a proper cup of dark roast, and figure out what comes next. Because in reclaiming my space and my life, I learned that real freedom often starts with saying, no more, and meaning it. Part 4. Why is my phone blowing up again? I thought, thumb hovering over the screen as I stared at the messenger preview. The group chat was ablaze with Zoe's new accusations, a volley of texts framing me as the monster who unilaterally evicted her and sold her car, out of spite, conveniently omitting the entire Instagram saga of her tropical fling with Cole. I let out a dry laugh. Narratives are sticky. People cling to them whether they're true or not. I fired off a quick summary to a couple of friends who'd reached out, Zoe's space, request, the X-vacation, and the legal ownership of the CX-5. Some responded with an, makes sense, while others hesitated, obviously siding with her version of events. Fair enough. Everyone picks their side. Then yesterday, out of the blue, my landlord's office called. An anonymous tip had alleged loud disturbances and shouting matches near my unit. My pulse slammed into my throat. Had Zoe or her allies decided to escalate? I grabbed my coat and headed down, rehearsing a neutral explanation. The building manager, Jen, greeted me in the lobby with a sympathetic look. I kept my tone calm. Jen, I appreciate the call. My ex, Zoe, lived here briefly, not on the lease, but she moved out after our breakup. There was one heated exchange at the door when she discovered I'd changed the locks per her own request for no contact. Her family was present to collect her things, boxes by the stairwell, that's it. No disturbances inside my loft, nothing ongoing. Jen nodded, taking notes. I understand. I'll file this, but unless there's more evidence or another complaint, we'll consider it closed. Relief washed over me. It was a cheap shot classic. If they can't keep you in your home, they'll try to get you evicted. But it fizzled out. Later that afternoon, I got a message request on Instagram from Cole. I didn't even pause. I deleted and blocked him. I don't need updates on his life or snarky comments about my breakup. Sitting on my balcony that evening, I scrolled through the group chat thread. Zoe's demands and victim act were piling up. You owe me compensation for the car. You're heartless. I'll see you in small claims court. My thumb hovered over each alert. Then I opened my notes app and wrote, the Mazda CX-5 was titled and insured in my name. Your payments constituted usage fees. The sale was lawful. No further discussion. I hit send, then blocked Zoe, Leah, and Marina on all channels. I felt surprisingly peaceful afterward. The entitlement, the smear campaigns, the attempt to bully me, it all crystallized something important. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. It was Zoe's pattern, using emotional pressure and alliances to rewrite reality to her advantage. After 2 months of dragging out every grievance, she finally exhausted my tolerance. Now, I'm left with quiet routines and clear lines. My apartment, my sanctuary, stands undisturbed. The car? Gone, but the funds are safely in my account. The boxes of Zoe's last belongings? Dropped off at Goodwill this morning. I didn't need the clutter of old relationship artifacts. Emotionally, the cleanup takes longer. I catch myself flinching at sudden knocks, double-checking locks I no longer need to secure. I'm relearning how to trust my own space. But I've started making new plans, repainting the spare room, inviting a handful of friends over for a game night, signing up for that woodworking class I've postponed since our move-in day. As for Zoe, she's stuck in her loop of posts and pleas, operating under the delusion that persistence will wear me down. But every message she sends, every friend she tries to rally, only cements my decision. This chapter is closed. A week ago, my friend Marcus stopped by with coffee and a grin. So, how's the newly liberated bachelor life? He teased, gesturing at my spotless living room. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. Honestly, it's good. Quiet's underrated. I took a sip of my latte and gazed at the cityscape, the early autumn leaves turning gold along the avenue below. Freedom has a taste. It's that first unguarded moment when you realize you can fill your days with exactly what you want. Zoe's drama no longer piques my curiosity. It's background noise, static I've learned to ignore. The real victory is in these small, intentional choices, locking my door on my own terms, cruising an empty driveway each morning, and charting a path forward untethered by someone else's demands. Final update, 2 months post-breakup. I feel steadier. The apartment feels like mine again, not a relic of shared history. I've lost a handful of mutual acquaintances who bought Zoe's sob story, but honestly, good riddance. Anyone willing to believe half the tale without facts isn't worth keeping around. So here I am, at the start of something uncharted. The takeaway? Boundaries aren't just words. They're actions, changing locks, selling assets, blocking contact. They hurt in the moment, but safeguard your future. And sometimes, that protection is the truest kindness you can give yourself. Part 5. Isn't it funny how the loudest victories come wrapped in silence? I thought, leaning back in my favorite armchair as morning light filtered through the curtains. Zoe's drama had faded into white noise, and I finally had breathing room to reflect on what I gained by enforcing boundaries. My real friends, those who'd known me before Zoe walked into my life, stuck by me unwaveringly. They heard my side, a girlfriend demanding space while jetting off with her ex, then accusing me of cruelty when locks changed and assets moved. They saw Zoe's narrative unravel and backed me 100%. That kind of loyalty is priceless. Then came the real escalation, a vaguely threatening letter from someone calling themselves Zoe's legal representative. The budget lawyer tone was unmistakable, typos galore, boilerplate threats demanding 10 grand for emotional distress and contributions to the Mazda CX-5. I forwarded the letter to an attorney I'd consulted earlier. He drafted a concise response. Attached copies of the vehicle title, loan agreement, and insurance policy, all solely in my name. A clear explanation that Zoe's payments covered usage and depreciation, essentially rent, and that she actually owed me funds if one did the math per standard mileage rates. Screen grabs of Zoe's original "I need space" text and timestamped Instagram post of her tropical reunion with Cole. A warning that any further baseless claims or harassment would result in litigation for legal fees and a formal request for a restraining order based on her prior attempts to involve my landlord. Silence followed. Zoe's budget lawyer must have realized there was zero case to press. Blowing her limited resources on flimsy threats without my financial backing wasn't an option. Word came through a mutual friend that Zoe had initially crashed at Lee's place, expecting handouts, only to spark tension when she refused to pull her weight. Surprise, surprise, Leah wasn't up for subsidizing a lifestyle funded by me. Predictably, Cole vanished once the trip ended. The sun-soaked photos and carefree smiles turned to radio silence. He had his fun. She was left facing the wreckage. Next, Zoe tried guilt-tripping her parents, Marina and her husband, for a bailout. They dug into savings to help her rent a cramped studio, but even they couldn't bankroll her indefinite demands. Last I heard, she decamped to her childhood bedroom, posters still on the walls, clothes packed in old plastic bins, complaining nonstop about how I'd ruined everything. I sat on my balcony as autumn leaves tumbled along the sidewalk. No more knocks at the door. No more frantic calls. The empty parking spot felt poetic, and homage to boundaries enforced and trust broken beyond repair. I even dropped off the last of Zoe's things at Goodwill, a lamp she'd insisted matched my decor, an old guitar she never played, a stack of self-help books she never finished. They fit right in, anonymous among hundreds of donated items. Last weekend, I repainted the living room a warm slate gray, removing the teal accent wall Zoe had loved. I swapped the bulky love seat for a sleek mid-century chair and ordered new curtains to soften the light. The place looks and feels like mine again. Each brushstroke, each new piece of furniture, was a small reclaiming of my space and sanity. The sweetest part of all this revenge wasn't the confrontation or the blocked numbers, it was the logical fallout I simply let unfold. Zoe asked for space, so I gave her an infinite horizon devoid of me. She prioritized a fling, she got the consequences. She assumed my home and car as her birthright. She lost them in an instant when trust evaporated. Sure, it stung at first. The shock of betrayal cut deeper than I expected. But I processed it like any other problem, gather the facts, act decisively, then move forward. No melodrama, no nights lost to what-ifs. I protected myself, locked doors, sold assets, and refused to be a doormat. Zoe thought she could play games she miscalculated. Now, each morning, I wake to birdsong instead of her frantic texts. I brew a cup of dark roast and plan my day. A photography workshop downtown, lunch with a colleague who's starting her own startup, a late afternoon bike ride along the river. My calendar is full of things I choose, not obligations imposed on me. Good riddance to Zoe. Good riddance to chaos. This chapter ends not with fireworks, but with a deep, steady exhale. The real victory lies in quiet enforcement of boundaries and letting reality do the rest. So here's to fresh paint, open roads, and the sound of my front door clicking shut on my terms. The end.